Hello and welcome to People, Politics and Power on Africa Independent Television AIT. This is a program that deals directly with ways to a united and progressive Nigeria, means to uphold the tenet of its democracy and create a one indivisible federal republic. I am Ojon Bello, your anchor on the program. Time there have been agitations and counter-agitations. First, the Southeast started by asking for a better deal for the region. Now, it gradually became a serious issue when IPOB overreached itself and demanded self-governance. Of course, in military parlance, it means secession. IPOB went further by creating the Republic of Biafra identity with the design of a flag, establishing a radio station, and organizing sitting action and rallies. The other regions which were included in the map of Biafra dissociated themselves. And this took the shape of counter-agitations, which were designed specifically to hit at Biafra protagonists. The Arewa Consultative Forum launched a counter, giving the Igbos time within which to leave the north. All of these attracted reactions from across the country, prompting the northern elders to meet with the acting president, Yemi Osinbajo, who warned very strongly that anybody who takes any step that will disrupt the peace of the country will be met with the full wrath of the law. With this, the peg of our talking point on people, politics, and power is the clamor for restructuring as interpreted by many across the country. How do you understand it? And do we have to come to the point of creating apprehension? Before we go into discussions, however, there is the need to see the meeting of the acting president, Yemi Osinbajo, with northern and southeastern leaders, where he gave an order to deal decisively with those fanning the embers of disunity in the country. You're welcome.
But we must be careful to recognize that we can only even begin to talk about getting any part of anything if we're together in peace. These days, wars do not end. And I'm sure that all of those who have seen or experienced war in any shape or form would not wish it on their worst enemies. This is not a time to retreat behind ethnic lines. Moments like this are not for isolating ourselves. And I want to urge all of us who are here, and of course the entire Nigerian populace, that it's a time for us to come together and to work together. As a government, we're of course determined to ensure the unity of the country along the lines of our constitution. And I want to say that hate or divisive speech or divisive behavior, where it is illegal, will be met with the full force of the law. And I want to ensure that there is no doubt at all of the resolve of government to ensure that no one will be allowed to get away with making speeches that can cause division or that can cause violence, especially because when we make these kinds of pronouncements and we do things that can cause violence or destruction of lives and property, we are no longer in control. Those who make those speeches are no longer in control. So I want to just emphasize that that government will take very seriously any attempts to cause violence or any attempts to disrupt the peace of this country. And that, I think, is very important, because we cannot control violence once it begins.
The Nigeria of our dream, the Nigeria we need, is the united, indissoluble, and cohesive Nigeria which guarantees equity, fairness, justice, and prosperity for its citizens. That is our focus on people, politics, and power. It is fresh, insightful, impactful. It's a must-watch. People, politics, and power on AIT. Join us to build bridges of unity.
To discuss the issue with me in the studio is His Excellency, the Governor of Bayelsa State, and a prominent leader in the South-South region, Governor Seriake Dickson. Your Excellency, welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much for having me, and thanks for the good job you and your colleagues are doing.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We get encouraged when we receive this kind of messages. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Now, let's go to this issue of restructuring. Restructuring to many people means different things. Well, some people will tell you, when you talk about restructuring, they'll talk about resource control. Some will talk about federalism. Some will even tell you that my own idea of restructuring is devolution of power. Somebody came here not long ago and was talking about restructuring, which was saying that we need to adjust our minds. Some will even tell you it should be total war on corruption or accountability. That when we talk about restructuring, are we holding our leaders accountable? Your Excellency, I want to know from you, what is your idea of restructuring Nigeria?
First of all, my idea of restructuring is a little bit of all of these. But first, let me associate myself clearly with what the acting president and actually what all other leaders in this country for now have been saying. That is, there is need for caution, there is need for a cessation of hate speeches around the country, wherever they are coming from. That has to stop. And that there is need for us all to know that whatever citizens of this country are saying, or groups within Nigeria are saying, should be done within the context of a united, strong Nigeria. It is on that premise that you can now have the other conversation, which is how do we reorganize ourselves. I'm aware that because the word restructuring or the term restructuring has been so overused and overflogged over the years, you know, it's not just IPOB or MASOB that is raising issues of restructuring. It came all the way back from the Nadoko days to the Patriots to my former party, the Alliance for Democracy, you know, and now to the ACN, AC, and so on. They kept saying that. And so many leaders from so many regions of our country, from my region, the South-South, a lot of other regions have been saying it, the need for restructuring. And maybe because of the overuse or the repeated use of this word and associated with some of the developments in some parts of the country, I think there's some apprehension as to what this concept of restructuring really and truly means. Another word for restructuring, if you like, is reorganization. Let us reorganize and readjust, you know, our structures and our systems within the context of a united Nigeria. So let's be very clear about this. This conversation about restructuring is not to the detriment of a united Nigeria. As a matter of fact, those who are making a case for restructuring are actually believers in the Nigerian project. They want to make it more stable. They want Nigeria to be more balanced. They want Nigeria to be stable. They want Nigeria to be equitable. They want Nigeria to survive the test of time and not go down like Yugoslavia or Soviet Union or recently South Sudan. Look at Sudan. So these things are real. These things are real. And from my understanding, those who are making a case for restructuring are simply saying, gentlemen, wait a bit. Hold on for a while. We are all members of the Nigerian nation, no doubt. But are there things we can adjust? Are there things we can do differently? And that's why I support it. The ongoing call for reorganization, for me, is made in good faith. All that it requires is for leadership to rise to the occasion, not to indulge in some kind of blame game or spreading hatred and preaching disunity or calling out war drums or calling out war dogs. We don't need all of that. Because as the acting president rightly said, these things, when violence starts or and there's any situation of war, you don't know how it ends. And we have our own history as to what happened in the 60s, the unfortunate incidents of the 60s, and the sacrifices that were made. And that's why I want to commend also the the steps taken by Igbo leaders, the Southeastern leaders, who so far now have dissociated themselves from some of those extreme utterances and views and moves. But what I want to urge them, and I've been saying that in my personal conversations with a number of them, is they need to go a step further and engage their younger, those young men who are on the other side of the divide, to let them understand that in the end, we should all work together and then see how we can adjust things. I'm talking about restructuring. That's why a few days ago I made a call, calling on the federal government and the APC that's in control of the center, to set up a committee, an all-party committee, select people, involve governors, involve National Assembly, involve state houses of assembly. Because ultimately, if we agree on how some of these reorganization processes should commence, these are the people that will affect it. And then you consult opinion leaders. When we have collated all of this, also look at all the conference reports. I don't think it's right to say throw away all the conference reports. No, a lot of manpower, a lot of brainstorming went into that. Some may disagree with some of the recommendations, but that's the very reason we should have a conversation. Remember, I keep saying that there is a failure, an abysmal failure of political leadership, an abysmal lack of politics. We should be talking. We should be having a conversation within the context of a united Nigeria. And that was what our leaders who fought and gave us independence, that was what they did. They had series of conferences. 1953, 1954, 1957. Some they went to London, Lancaster House. They were holding different conferences and meetings. The more they disagreed, the more they met. What is not happening now, and I keep lamenting this, and this is why I keep saying, unfortunately, political leaders now are more militant than the military, unfortunately. More intolerant of adverse opinions or criticisms or adverse views. You don't say those who are calling for restructuring should go to hell. No. You are the one creating the problem in that case. Why should you not be worried if you are in a family and every day one section of the family will raise an issue about issues of fairness in the federation, about the lack of equity, about the size and the structures that we have in place? Everybody should be bothered. For me, it is sadism. If you are in a family, you have 10 children, for example, and then every day one will rise up and say, Daddy, the way you are running this house, we don't like it. You deal with that. Tomorrow another one takes up. And then it should occur to you one day, look, hold on, what is happening in this household? Gentlemen, madam, let all of us sit down and know how we can do things differently. That is the way I think we should approach this matter. The founding fathers of Nigeria would have done it that way. We need to meet in a brotherly, friendly atmosphere, raise the issues that are of concern to ourselves as Nigerians. I keep telling even my people, issues about environmental justice are legitimate. Because what is going on in the Niger Delta is environmental terrorism. In my state, you have more spill. Every day there is a spill. And the systems and structures are simply not there. Either to stop it, to deal with it, or even to give judicial redress. So that's what is going on. So if people raise that, it's legitimate. If people say, look, gentlemen, we own this oil. It's coming from my father's land. And here am I not benefiting as a community, or as a family, or even as a state, apart from what you call derivation, which is a handout you give. Those are legitimate conversations. You don't brand that as some kind of subversive move. You don't brand that as some kind of move that is inimical to the existence of the Federation. What we must all be clear about is that while listening to all this conversation, we should be very clear that we should be having this conversation within the context of a united Nigeria. Because I, for one, I don't want to be even with the oil reserves and gas reserves, if I have an option, I would want to be in a big country like Nigeria. Not a one tiny oil-rich nation that one neighboring country can overrun in 1 minute or 1 hour. You saw what happened to Kuwait.
Yeah.
So if we all want to be in Nigeria, and that's the sense I get, then we should be interested in what kind of Nigeria we want to create. How do we fund this Nigeria we have created? How do we create structures that will ensure its survival and sustainability? Not just for 2, 3 years, or 4 years, or 5 years, but for the long haul. America has lasted. That experiment they did in 1787 has lasted for over 200 years. That's the kind of vision I think we should carve for ourselves and for posterity. And we can't do that by running away from ourselves. We can't do that by waging war. We can't do that by pulling people out or by spreading hatred. As Kennedy said, let us not be afraid to negotiate. But let us all also not negotiate out of fear. So what is needed is for leadership at the national level, because they have to take the initiative. The APC-led federal government has to take the initiative. And I'm very happy that this morning I read in the newspapers that the some statement appears to be emanating, if it is true, from the federal government, saying that they are also thinking of a template as to how to go about it. We need to do that quickly and resolve these issues.
Now, you've been talking about sitting down together and discuss and deliberate. You are calling it a committee or whatever. Permit me to call it a national conference. We have been having this even before the coming in of APC.
Yes.
I think what we should be talking now is what is disturbing and delaying implementation of past conferences?
Well, essentially, political will. Political will. And that's why, because I like to be fair, and I'm not a very good Nigerian politician. I believe that it will be unfair for us, where we are, to hold the APC government responsible for not implementing the reports of the last conference. The reason I say that is because if the conference came as a product of a deliberate strategy, then it should have been implemented. Do you understand?
Yeah.
I believe that it is, although I know that some in my party may not like, but that's the truth. If we started a conference, then built into that inherent strategy should have been a mechanism and a timeline for its implementation. So it will be wrong, in my view, to ask them to go ahead and implement, especially as you know, like what happens with all conferences like that. There were issues here and there raised by people and so on. But I think the conference essentially did a good job, touched on a lot of these areas. And that is why I don't think we need another conference, really. What we need is for a technical team to harness, to go through some of these, harness it and bring out some of the essential issues.
Which I think that is what your committee should do.
That's what I'm proposing.
Okay.
Also go into the one that former President Obasanjo did. But unfortunately, and I think that was actually our finest moment, unfortunately it got bogged down by issues of third term, controversy, and so on and so forth. So even the perception of it, the former president says he never wanted a third term. Okay, we take him by his words, but there was an overwhelming perception that the whole idea was to get a third term. So that kind of destroyed that wonderful, brilliant initiative. So what I think should be done right now, where we are, is not to empanel another large conference, you know, and spend scarce resources, especially now that we're in a recession, talking of paying salaries at the federal and state level and local government. We're all in crisis. So what I think should be done is a committee, professionally chosen. They distill all these recommendations to Obasanjo's one, to the one that former President Jonathan did, and even any other existing one. And then there should be an all-inclusive committee. Party leaders, selected leaders, governors, representative of governors, forum, the National Assembly leadership, and the leadership of the House of Assembly. Different than all the houses of assembly. They have a leadership.
Yes.
So once we develop a consensus around the templates already raised and the issues already raised, the president can forward that to the National Assembly. Okay. And some of these issues can quite easily be dealt with. What you are calling restructuring is not a big deal as such. Take, for example, the judicature. The judiciary in this country is overwhelmed, understaffed, and even not adequately resourced. Why do I say this? With the existing system that you have in the Constitution, any dispute, including a dispute as to ownership of our traditional lands, my ancient land in Torora and your land from your village, if there's a dispute, it goes all the way to the Nigerian Supreme Court. That doesn't make sense. It may have served a purpose at the time, because those who wrote the Constitution were very eminent people, and we shouldn't ascribe ill motive or bad motive to them, no. But a time has come where we should now say, look, these are state matters. These are regional matters. Regional courts deal with it. These are state court matters, deal with it. The federal court should simply deal with federal issues. That's what is happening all over. That's what is happening. So if you do that, you have freed the judiciary. The Supreme Court of Nigeria is too important. It shouldn't get into every push me, I push you dispute. Yeah. Or now, like my party, the failure of political leadership to sit down as to who should be their national chairman. You now have to wait for months and years for a Supreme Court of Nigeria
to decide who will be the
failure of leadership, political leadership. I've said it over. Some may not like it, but that's the truth. I'm a politician of conviction. I believe that is wrong, and I stand by it. So the judiciary is overworked. The Supreme Court of Nigeria should only deal with very sensitive issues. Violation of constitutional rights, because that is critical. Because the whole existence of the country is predicated on the Constitution. Why you are taking the oil in my state is because there's a Constitution that says, rightly or wrongly, that the oil resources there are vested in an entity known as the federal government. So anybody who plays with the constitutional order is actually playing with the sovereignty of the nation. It's as serious as that. So in the case of the judicature, you can deal with that. Get experts in that area. We deal with it. What levels of judiciary do we create? States, in other federations, states have their Supreme Courts. States have a Court of Appeal. And you have all these courts bogged down because of the workload. So that you free them. So that's the case of the judicature, for example, the judiciary. There are issues you can easily isolate and deal with in the area of law and order. Because anyhow you talk of anti-corruption, you do this, once you don't have an effective law enforcement mechanism, the country collapses. Because the authority of the Federal Republic is not vested in the Inspector General of Police who stays in Abuja. The authority of the Federal Republic is vested in the beat duty constable you see. It's vested in the customs agent you see at the airports. It's vested in the immigration man you see there at the airport. Once these levels fail, whatever you do cannot hold water. And if your policing system in the country is weak, you can't build anything on top of it. It will collapse. That's what we are having. So those are issues you can isolate. We brainstorm, and it should be a lively and robust debate, devoid of ethnic coloration or religious dogma, because we are in a federal republic. And then we take these things. Then you come to the issues that some of us have been advocating for a long time, resource control. What you call, I keep saying this, what you call in Abuja and Lagos and other capitals of the world as oil block is ancestral property of our people in the Niger Delta. You sit down here and you say oil block from DPR, from Ministry of Petroleum Resources, and you allocate it as you please. Well, that is someone's ancestral property down there in the Niger Delta. So it is perfectly legitimate for them to complain that, look, the federation is unfair. We have been funding it for the past 61 years. You built major capitals. You built billionaires out of it. Nigeria, because of the discovery of oil in Bayelsa, Oloibiri 1956, and in other places now in the Niger Delta, became a world power, a global power, power of influence. Good. We are in a country. That's our contribution. But then you have to be fair. So it is legitimate for us to say, gentlemen, let's look at the side effects of oil production, the sacrifices we are making. Our people are dying slowly. Let's also see how they can get commensurate benefits from this. I.e., you talk about the issues of ownership. Resource control means ownership. Okay? Now, the importance of that is that it is only in the area of oil and mineral rights that you have a subversion of the constitutional order itself. And what do I mean? In our constitution, we claim that we are operating a free market capitalist economy. And you know the factors of production in a capitalist economy. Huh?
Yes.
You have capital, you have labor, that is skills, and you have what? Land.
Land over there.
Land. That is the foundation of every development. What Nigeria did against the oil-producing people was that they passed a series of positive legislations. Scholars were put together. The Attorney General at the time, a proponent of the British Positivist School of Law, Dr. Taslim Elias, one of our very best, undoubtedly, and came with legislations effectively expropriating the resources of the peoples of the Niger Delta and vesting same on the federal government. And that is the way it is. They made sure that they included it in the Constitution, even though it is an anomaly. They made sure it is included in the petroleum legislations. They even made sure that they included it in the Land Use Act. Now, look, so you can say, well, it's a young federation. We needed these resources to fast-track development across the country. We've done that for now 61 years. And it is legitimate for people who are producing resources to say, wait a minute, my brothers and sisters, we are suffering, we're not getting enough. And those are issues that you mutually agree on. And Nigerian government has been agreeing. They've been listening. They started with 1.5 oil mineral fund, graduating until now so-called 13%.
13%.
But in actual fact, it is far, far, far less than 13%.
Is it not 13?
No, it is not. It is not. Because what they do, the NNPC and the DPR and all these ones, they come up with different schemes and ways.
That will even take out of
that they take a lot of these unnecessary, unverifiable, and unverified claims.
Deductions.
And then do all of that. And in any case, you have to depend on an entity called revenue mobilization to work out what you are producing. And a lot of funny things are going on. Meanwhile, and this is the point I'm making, meanwhile, if you sit down, you can say, gentlemen, look, my argument, for example, the right argument is, we produce, we own. You levy tax. The federation has the power to levy a tax. So what you do is, you raise your tax.
On it.
You raise your tax. That way, you've respected the principles of ownership. Because what it means is that, when you see oil, I don't own land again. But in FCT, you have land that you are selling like oil. In Lagos, your land is as costly as oil. But when you come to Bayelsa and you see oil or gas,
no land again.
There's no land again. There's no ownership again. The ownership now is taken away by an arbitrary expropriatory legislation to be vested in the federation. Now, these are things that Nigeria is very lucky. Nigeria actually, not many countries can do this for so long and get away the way we have gotten away. But I want to make it clearly. As I've said severally, oil wealth alone does not constitute the wealth of this country. The greatness of Nigeria essentially is our size and population, and our very active and virile population, human resource base. This country is so blessed. It's a great country. So now I think that the time has come for us to use this window and then amicably resolve some of these things and leave a better Nigeria for generations to come.
Thank you very much. The program is People, Politics and Power. And my guest is the governor of Bayelsa State, Seriake Dickson. We've been talking about restructuring, but I would still want to take my guest back to the issue of advising Igbo leaders to talk to their youths. I still want to believe that these youths we want to talk to are still listening to some elders. Maybe Igbo elders will talk to Igbo elders on the way they advise the youths, not really the youths, because the youths are still listening to some elders. That's my take.
Well, sometimes these things are not as direct and as clear as you are putting it, or as some may perceive it to be. I come from a state and also from a region that has had challenges in terms of young people embarking on a course of action on their own, without the support of the elders. And sometimes in trying to manage these things, it takes time and it takes a lot of effort. What I would like to say at this point is that we should encourage the Igbo leaders, because if there's any one group that has enjoyed Nigeria in a very peculiar way, in the sense of enjoying freedom of movement, freedom to undertake commercial enterprises and businesses, and I think they should be free to do that without let or hindrance. It is Igbos. They have investments everywhere, you know, and so on. So, and they, for example, coming from where I do, we look at them as our brothers and our friends, you know, and of recent, they've been very supportive. So, but the idea of young people saying, oh, Biafra boundary extends to Bayelsa, Biafra boundary extends to rivers, you know, extends to Delta, extends to Akwa Ibom. Of course, you've been seeing the reactions. Those things need to be stopped. Okay. And they need to engage them. They need to, in my view, tell them what I'm saying now, that we are even telling our youths. We work for a united, strong Nigeria, but a Nigeria that is fair. A Nigeria of equal citizenship. A Nigeria where no one will be persecuted on the basis of religion or tribe. A Nigeria where you can fly as high as your abilities can take you. That, I think, is actually the manifest destiny of this country. And we need to work together to achieve that.
All right, Your Excellency. We'll soon go to the issue of your party, because you were chairman Reconciliation Committee, and we have discussed many times. But just before going there, your people are suffering from this you refer to as environmental terrorism. Yes. And I quite agree with you. Because if people who are fishermen, the rivers are already polluted, yeah. The fishes are dying, and even if you have land where you are farming, the crops cannot grow because of the soil. Yeah. How are you assisting your people with compensation? Whether from state or federal government? Well,
you see, these are the challenges. Now, the environment has been completely destroyed, and that's why I coined the term environmental terrorism. Because that exactly is what characterizes properly what is going on. Because there's a failure of regulation in Nigeria. The regulatory agencies are simply not working. In America, you saw what happened when there was a spill in the Gulf of Mexico. Yes, cleared, and billions of dollars paid. In Nigeria, our regulatory agencies, because of this size of the federal government, because of the size of the federal government, there is a lot of sloppiness. And these are issues of life and death, environmental damage. Our people are dying slowly. The cancer rate is very high. There, spillage, all the aquatic life is destroyed. So even the economy is destroyed. So you have a lot of jobless people around. And meanwhile, globalization, they just put one office in one place and be employing people and they are working. So the locals are not part of the economy. So you talked about compensation. Look, this is one area the federal and their agencies should work with the oil companies to do. For example, in Bayelsa, it's a peculiar case. We don't even have the offices there. The oil companies are not even in Bayelsa. They don't even pay tax. We are battling. If they sell oil assets, like the biggest oil asset in Bayelsa was sold, OML 29, the state bidded, but they didn't sell it to us. And by the way, that's not this federal government. They sold it, the state bidded. But some
other states got.
Well, a private businessman got. So what I'm saying is that there's a lot we need to talk about. How the people can get benefit from the resources that they rightly own, and also at the same time how the federation itself can get legitimate and just revenue.
Right. The program is People, Politics and Power. Let's go to the issue with the opposition party in Nigeria, the People's Democratic Party, PDP. We'll be doing ourselves a grave injustice if we don't take His Excellency up on some questions. He's a chieftain of the party. And we'll also take a glance at the talks among the two groups within the party. There are reports that the Supreme Court has fixed July 12 to rule on the leadership crisis within the PDP, which has polarized the once largest party in Africa, which held power in Nigeria for 16 uninterrupted years, depleting its structure and strength. Recall that the Reconciliation Standing Committee of the PDP, headed by Governor Seriake, Dickson, my guest, had submitted its recommendations to the various groups within the party. But it was misinterpreted, and today the PDP is no longer at its grip the way Nigeria will think it should be in Nigeria's party politics. But before we go further into discussions on the PDP crisis, let's see the Dickson Reconciliation Committee meeting with one of the groups.
Here, we have spoken with so many stakeholders and leaders of our party. There is no pretense that the proposal we are presenting to you is a silver bullet that will cure every and all ills and challenges. But it's our humble effort, after consulting a wide range of leaders and stakeholders of our party, after mobilizing opinion of stakeholders to support the peace process as the only realistic and practical step moving forward of our party. We are here to propose make these humble proposals to you, Mr. Chairman, for your consideration. Firstly, we restate our commitment again to the pursuit of a political solution as the best option for resolving the ongoing challenges facing our party. This we say without prejudice, as I said earlier, to any ongoing judicial process, which will take care of itself. Secondly, we feel, sir, that there is need to provide a template that will ultimately culminate in the holding of a unity national convention as soon as possible. A national convention where all stakeholders and leaders or opinion leaders will be involved, and that will give hope and rekindle the enthusiasm that millions and millions, the teeming millions of Nigerians and lovers of Nigeria have for our party as the only hope for Nigeria's democracy.
Now, at the end of the day, it's like opting for political solution would have been better.
Well, thank you very much. That's what I've always maintained, and that's why, fortunately, I always go by my convictions about what is right at any given point in time and what is fair for everybody. I felt, and I still feel, that we lost a golden opportunity to put the bits and pieces of our party back, not to prolong the crisis. If stakeholders had keyed in and then brainstormed with us as to how to ring-fence that convention instead of rejecting it outright. And I'm happy that what is going on in Osun, I hear, is like that. Instead of rejecting the candidates and saying, oh, the national chairman pronounced by the court cannot submit a name, all the stakeholders came together, agreed on a candidate, and forwarded the candidate to the chairman, saying, Mr. Chairman, this is our candidate. All of them are working together. Now, that is the political attitude that leaders of the party should have adopted. Remember, I was very clear as to who should be chairman. But if you had a situation that you needed to manage, you needed to be realistic. And I don't know what interests motivated them to do what they did and what will come out of the party. We are hoping that after the Supreme Court would have decided one way or the other, people will be reasonable still to know what is the right step to take. Because this country needs, and our democracy needs, a strong, cohesive party in government. So we shouldn't also try to destroy the APC. No, this country needs the APC. Strong APC in government, but we also need a strong opposition party. These are national institutions, and we should treasure them. We should, in my view, enrich them, not diminish them, not destroy them, as I think the intransigence of some of the leaders of my party have done. I just hope that the party will survive this. And as we move on, we will also see why most of the leaders were doing what they were doing. We'll see it by the day.
Well, in certain quarters in Africa, it is believed that you don't come back from court and still be friends. But I hear that some, if not many, PDP members are already saying that no matter wherever it goes, McCarthy or Modu Sheriff, that they are still with PDP. You think this can still be possible?
Well, like I said always, I've always said, how I wish we're not at the stage we are in.
Yeah.
How I wish reason prevailed and we soft-pedaled to enable political resolution be deployed. Because in the end, it's a failure of politics. Just like even in national issues, it's a failure of politics. Once political leaders rise to the occasion, like the founding fathers of this country did, they were going on conferences and even to discuss how to have a police force. They were meeting in Ibadan, abusing, sometimes quarreling. It comes with the tough. You don't decree something in a democracy and then expect that, oh, that's what everybody will do. No. So is that absence of politics, absence of political skills, and the unwillingness to deploy the tools of engagement that is at the root of the PDP and even the APC, and even generally of the Nigerian Federation. Because we should be able to talk to ourselves.
Indeed, we need to talk to ourselves, even at party level and national level. But how do you demilitarize political leaders who are becoming more militant by the day?
More militant, more intolerant,
yes.
more everything except being political leaders. You see, look at the history of the, including, for example, the Alhaji Maitama Sule, who passed on a few days ago. Read their lives. Look at them. Engaging, talking about tolerance, accommodation. You disagree. It's right to disagree. We should actually disagree more, because it shows the validity of our system. But the political leader must be willing to listen to the opposing views, must be willing to go for the common good, not promoting one sectional or personal interest above the other. Then you're not a leader. So that generation We lost them. And because of the interventions of military, they didn't quite pass, in my view, some of these skills down. So people who have that mindset are actually in the minority. And it's unfortunate. But I think as we get democracy endures more people will be groomed for leadership. Leadership is a serious business. And there has to be grooming. It's not Kururu Sarara from Motor Park. You are this. From Motor Park, you are a governor. From Motor Park, you are... It doesn't work that way. Because you need to understand your responsibilities to the society. All of us have a responsibility to the country. Our first duty is to work for national stability and peace. And to support, collaborate with whoever is there on the economy and on national security. We do our party differences later, without deploying violence and terror, without even going for each other's jugular unnecessarily. Look at what is playing out in other established climes. The tools of politics are debate, persuasion, argument. Politics is democracy, is a marketplace of ideas. So we should feel free to trade our ideas. Look at what happened in France. 39-year-old young man came out, sold his ideas to the country. And they felt, rightly or wrongly, time will prove very soon, because it's one thing to be propounding ideas when you are not in government. It's a different ball game when you get there. But the point I'm making is, the French people listen to his ideas, and you have a 39-year-old as president of France. We are yet to get there. And that's why we need this reorganization. Get even the political order, the legal order, the economic order, all of this sorted out properly, according to our own circumstances. Not really fashioned after UK or America, as the 1979 Constitution sought to do. But when we have done that, then, as we go on with the electoral reforms, and we stop the abuse of power. The president is the ultimate custodian of federal executive power. But the president and us, governors and so on, we have the same responsibility when it comes to maintenance of law and order. Because every state, it's all the states that make up the country.
Yes.
The president does not have a state. It is when Bayelsa is safe, other states are safe, when all local governments are safe, and all these chief executives are doing their job, that the country can be safe. The president's duty is also to deploy its overriding power, not to undermine any other level, but to advance the overall good of the country.
All right, Your Excellency, this is my last question. Now, what we have been saying now, the question and answer session has revealed that we don't really understand the meaning of leadership. What can be done for people, especially those coming into power, to know what they are going to do? What is leadership? Is it lack of the adequate enlightenment campaign or what?
I think there's an element, we have to go back to our educational system, which over the years has collapsed. That's part of the investment I'm making in Bayelsa. Because if you have not invested in the right education,
yes,
you can't create the leaders that you deserve. You know, we had good leaders and we are losing them now. Because the systems that produced them made them to be inherently very solid. Whether they were businessmen, whether they were journalists, whether they were very solid. They went to government college Ugeli, government college this, government college that. You know, we have lost Barewa College. Look at what has happened to that institution. An institution that has produced how many presidents? It's a shadow of itself. It's a shame. So that has collapsed. And then the education, the collapse of the educational system, and the absence of mentorship. Mentorship. It now became who can blackmail somebody more, who can spread propaganda more, who can hire more thugs more, who can mobilize cultists more,
who can dig deeper into the activities of
criminality.
Yes.
These are the things that are destroying the country. So we've got a very, very serious issue. And that's why military leaders are very solid. Up till today. Military leaders, because of the process that produces them. You can imagine what General Gowon and all of them, their colleagues, did at 32 or so.
Yes.
they were foisted onto leadership positions. And they had to steer the ship of a country that was in crisis, deeply divided, along religion, along ethnicity. And young officers, most of them unmarried. You know? Look at King Spiff, 24 years, governor of Rivers.
Yes, Alfred Yates.
Yes, so all of them like that, but their training and the leadership training process. So that's what is lacking. But
I know definitely Your Excellency does not want military interregnum.
No. We are Democrats. We are Democrats. We will be the worst off for it.
Yes.
We pray against it. We'll cast and bind that.
Yeah, we'll cast and bind. Well, if you cast and bind, permit me to thank Pastor Seriake Dickson for binding. We really thank you, Your Excellency, for coming on to the program. It's been nice having you.
Thank you very much, Odom, for having me. Thanks for the good job you guys are doing, giving voice to our democracy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Your Excellency.
Yes.
Well, the program has been People, Politics and Power, and we really believe that you have been enjoying yourself with the issue of restructuring and the little time we spent talking about the PDP crisis. I am Ojon Bello. We hope you want to join us same time when we bring you the program. Bye for now.